Okay, let's try this again. I'd like to call a meeting of the Budget Review Committee to order on Monday, May 22nd, 2017 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermatic Chamber. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Laurie Wilshire. Here. Alderman Brian McCarthy.
Present.
Alderman Michael O'Brien, present. Alderman David Shoneman.
Here.
Alderman Sean McGinnis, absent. Alderman Ken Siegel.
Present.
The chair, Alderman Richard Dowd.
Present.
Also in attendance will be the mayor. I seen him here.
Okay, this evening, we're going to be primarily focusing on the police and the fire department, but before we do that, the mayor has asked that we have a presentation from Safe Stations so they can bring us up to date. And we'll be doing that in a moment. So the first item of business is public comment. Does anyone like to present anything in public comment? None? Communications?
There are none.
Okay. Table in committee, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take from the table R-1682. It's relative to transfer of $20,000 from the Department 194 contingency account 70100, general contingency to Department 109, civic and community activities, accounting classification 56, outside agencies for the purpose of providing funding to harbor homes for their role in the Safe Station program.
The motion is to take from the table R-16082. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Alderman O'Brien?
Okay. Is this the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we want the motion?
Recommend final passage.
All right.
We'll have discussion.
All right. Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage
Of,
of R-1682.
okay, the motion on the floor is for final passage of R-16082. And before we get into discussion.
We're going to pass that out.
Okay. All right, so we'll start them that way. Laura, you want to? Before we have discussion, the mayor has asked to allow a presentation on this subject. Alderman Siegel.
Can allow for communications to be received that were not submitted before the agenda was prepared.
Is that the Safe Stations
State
data?
stations, yeah.
Okay. All right, the motion on the floor is to so far suspend the rules as to allow for communications that was not presented before the agenda, and that's the data from Safe Stations. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I wanted to come in with two people from the Partnership for Successful Living, or Harbor Homes, those being Peter Kelleher, the executive director, who's right next to me, and Anna Pansine, who's the controller for the organization, to give you a brief explanation regarding the status of the Safe Stations program and to talk about the request that's incorporated in R-16082 for city funds to help support this effort. First of all, before we begin, I would like to say that of course, I know you're reviewing the police and the fire departments tonight, and I, having worked with both departments very closely with respect to the opioid crisis, I mean, I cannot say enough as to the tremendous job that they are doing with respect to our opioid problem in the city. With respect specifically to the Safe Stations program, the firefighters and of course, the chief and the management of the department have pitched in and done an incredible job. doing everything they possibly can to help those in need. Of course, the fire department has been responding to the overdose calls for a long, long time. For 2 years has been administering Narcan, and now for the past 6 months has been involved in the Save Stations program. And as I'm sure you know, Mr. Chair, anybody who wants help with an addiction, who does not want to suffer alone, can go to any fire station 24 hours a day, and they will be received by a firefighter who gives a short intake interview, calls AMR, the ambulance company, and then in the end, the Partnership for Successful Living, within about 12 minutes, picks the person up to take them to either the treatment facility or the shelter. So the fire department has been doing this for 6 months, and is a critical partner in this effort. And again, I can't say enough about how helpful they've been. With respect to the police department, they're not directly involved in the Safe Stations program, but have made, in calendar year 2016, made over 800 drug arrests. They're working very hard to make it extremely difficult to deal illegal drugs, specifically and most particularly heroin, in Nashua. And they report, and I think they can tell you during the budget review, that the word on the street is it's very hard to deal heroin in Nashua because of their efforts. And so they too are contributing to an improvement, I think, in the situation we have in the city regarding the opioid crisis, the opioid problem. Now, specifically on the Safe Stations program, I wanted to show you the statistics and the reports that are generated every 2 weeks, so that you can see how much work is going into not only running the program, but to analyzing it and trying to improve it in various respects. So what you've got here, and I'm going to, of course, introduce you to Mr. Kelleher and Ms. Pansine in a little bit, but what you have here on the first page, this gives you the overall statistics regarding the number of people who've reported. And what it shows is that 435 people have reported at a Nashua fire station through last night, seeking help with an addiction. And you can see that it's broken down in various ways down the page. At the bottom, it shows you where the participants have come from. The majority are from Nashua, but others come from other places. The second most frequent home for those reporting to a fire station is Manchester. But where 52 people have shown up from Manchester, but if you look up above, you will see that the number of Nashua participants who have gone to a Manchester station is greater than that number, although I don't see it immediately, but it is more than 52. It's closer to 90, something around in there. Now, their program has been operating for a year or so, so that's part of the reason for the disparity. If you look on page 2, at the top, you see the graph, showing the number of ODs that have been reported by AMR, another critical partner in this effort, since the beginning of January 2015. And the blue number gives you the number of ODs that are non-fatal, and the pink number is the number of fatal ODs in each month. So you will see that particularly through 2015 and 16, there were a rising number of ODs, culminating in the month of October 2016, where there were 47 ODs with 7 fatalities, following the month of September, where there were 26 ODs and again 7 fatalities. So in that period, there were 14 fatal overdoses in 2 months. And that, we've been working on the safe stations, or working on trying to get the safe stations program in place up to that time, but that certainly was a critical time when everybody realized, look, I mean, we've got to just do this as quickly as possible. So in November 2016, halfway through the month, is when the program was launched, and then you can see that, at least based on statistics, the number of ODs has declined and kind of leveled off. April 17 was really the lowest month that the city had since way back February of 15. So the efforts of the fire department and so the Safe Stations program, the Harbor Homes, as well as the police department, seem to be having an effect. There are other statistics are given in the various pages of that report, which you can look at, and certainly we can answer questions about. And the fire department is here, and they can answer anything as well. I wanted to just show you the Safe Stations data, which is this report, which we get every 2 weeks. If you just look through there, I mean, it just shows you that the gender breakdown of everybody involved, the type of insurance that each person has by percentage, the largest number, the majority of people having, or nearly 44% having Medicaid. And it shows you where else the sources of insurance are. And then it even shows you the type of Medicaid they have. One page shows you the treatment options to which people were channeled, Keystone Hall, intensive outpatient, or inpatient residential, et cetera. And you can see various other statistics and facts that are provided there. This report here with all the spreadsheet with all the line items, that's a documentation of each single person that is reported, showing the type of insurance they had, showing the type of treatment they were rendered, and the various assistance and course of treatment that they got. So the point of these, I think, is to show that there is a lot of work, and all of these Safe Stations data is all put together by the partnership Harbor Homes. The amount of work that's going into statistically examining who's coming in, what kind of treatment they're getting, and where their insurance is coming from, and everything else. We're meeting every couple of weeks to try to improve not only the program, but the measurements, the ability to gauge the level of success. Harbor Homes has been working particularly hard on trying to, and along with the City Health Department, to develop a methodology to track each person that goes into the program, where they stand in 3 months, in 6 months, 12 months, and 2 years, to show the number of people that have successfully stayed in recovery, the number of people who had a relapse, and just the outcomes for as many of the people as we can possibly track. Now, if you get into this whole problem of addiction, it is a disease which results in which is very difficult to shake and to recover from. There are a lot of relapses. Some people who end up being successful relapse a whole number of times. But it is very satisfying to see the firsthand stories, as we did a few weeks ago at Harbor Homes, of the people who've entered the Safe Stations program and have successfully maintained their sobriety, have stayed in recovery through the day when they reported. And there were 3 people who spoke in particular. I think it was Tyler, Brian, and John were their first names. they were very moving in the testimony they provided. Now to Harbor Homes and the Partnership for Successful Living. Program could never operate without Harbor Homes because they are the ones who respond to the fire station, pick up the people who are seeking help, and take them and they either to the shelter if it's a very odd hour, or to the center at 45 High Street for evaluation by a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. They are available 24 hours a day. They have never failed to pick, of the 435 people who have reported, they have never failed to pick someone up. The average time is 11 minutes and 29 seconds that it takes for the Harbor Homes driver to respond to a fire station. That is critical for our fire department because the fire department doesn't want to be held up waiting for with a safe stations participant waiting for the pickup, and they get a call from some other source, a fire or something like that, and they can't respond because they have someone in the station. I think the fire department will say that they have never actually had a situation where they were delayed as a result of a safe station report because Harbor Homes is so good at picking people up immediately. Now, the Harbor Homes is also essential because of the level of treatment and care which they provide to each person. Everybody who reports is, within a very short order, evaluated by a licensed drug and alcohol counselor, and then is directed into a course of treatment that is most appropriate for that person. I think that our program, although modeled after Manchester, is more successful in terms of getting people into recovery and into treatment. And if it is, that's because of Harbor Homes, because Harbor Homes has been so effective in finding treatment for every person. They have 11 respite beds over at 45 High Street, where they can care for people on a short-term basis, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a week, or even a little longer. If there's a delay in getting a person, for example, into a overnight residential full-time 28-day program. But the respite bed is a medical bed where they have a physician and other medical care providers who can help the person through medical detox during the time that they're at the respite bed. So they're not just in a holding situation. They're actually being cared for, and they're in recovery while at the respite beds. So the issue for Harbor Homes is that they are operating this program at a deficit, and the budget which Harbor Homes has given us, which is this page here. The white shows the actual. The white on the first page shows the actual, and the gray shows the projected. So through the first 4 months, or the first 5 months, excuse me, of the program, they've operated at a deficit of about $98,000. The main reason for the costs is that they have to have drivers available 24 hours a day. So they've got people on call to whom they pay a stipend to be on call, and then they pay people to do a pickup. And the drivers are extremely dedicated and committed to this cause, but they are being paid. Now, our hope is that, and Mr. Kelleher and Ms. Pansine can get into this in a little more detail. Our hope is that the deficit can be closed at some point in the near future. because Harbor Homes has access to funds that are provided through the Bureau of Drug and Alcohol Abuse. But currently, they are subject to restrictions which have not enabled Harbor Homes to access all of the funds. And the Bureau, has been asked to loosen those restrictions so that those funds could be used to help supplement this program more successfully than has been the case to date. And 2 weeks ago, the governor's drug czar, as we call him, as well as the chair of the Governor's Commission on Drug and Alcohol Abuse, came down to meet with everyone involved. And we're optimistic that they will loosen those funds sometime before the end of the fiscal year, meaning by hopefully June 30. But it will only be going forward. They will not let the funds be used more flexibly retroactively. So we're looking at a $96,000 deficit. Now, you have before you the resolution R16082, where we requested $20,000 be transferred from contingency to the program. We came up with this figure before at the time the program was beginning, with no idea how many people would actually show up. And the reality is many more people have shown up than we really expected, meaning shown up reported to a safe station. And you can see that if you look at the statistics, at the beginning it was more like one a day, through November into December on average. But in April it was about 3 a day. And I think May has maintained nearly that pace. One day, 10 people showed up in one day. Now, occasionally a day goes by and there's no one who reports, but there could be 8 or 10 a couple different times. Sometimes it's 4 or 5, sometimes it's 1 or 2 or 0, but the total average number is much higher than we anticipated. And so the costs of running the program are more than really it seemed like it would be at the beginning. So I'm going to give, with your indulgence, Mr. Chair, Mr. Kelleher, the chance to speak about this and fill in any gaps or correct me where I've not been accurate. But we would like to ask the committee to consider amending the resolution of a contingency transfer to so that the transfers and the support is for $50,000 for the remainder for this fiscal year, rather than 20. That will still leave them with about a $50,000 deficit, which we believe we can, with the city's help to that degree, can raise elsewhere. And we're cautiously optimistic that in the next fiscal year there will not be an equivalent deficit or gap, because we are cautiously optimistic that the Bureau of Drug and Alcohol Abuse will enable more flexibility regarding the use of their funds so that this deficit would not be nearly as large. We have raised some other money. $10,000 came from the hospital. Money was raised at a pancake breakfast. $23,000 was raised there. So we have been raising other money, but still there is there's this gap. But with that, I know I went on a little while, but with that I'll give you Mr. Kelleher to give his insight into the situation.
Mr. Kelleher?
Thank you. Thank you, members of the Board of Aldermen and women. I just want to first say that this has been a real honor for our agency to have the opportunity to participate with so many great partners with the fire department, ambulance, police department, and the mayor's office, and the hospitals, as we've tried to see if we could bend the curve on the opiate crisis that's been facing the greater Nashua area. And, I think for us, really, what this is about is access, improving access to vital services for people that are desperate. When they show up at the fire station, I read each and every one of the sort of statements that they make, and it's really, they're at the end of the rope. And it's that magic moment when each of us has, when that window is only open for so long about being willing to accept help. And so when someone's at the fire department, they're saying, yep, I'm ready. And we have to be there as quickly as possible to try to make sure that that moment of access is provided to them. And one of the ways that I think the mayor did an outstanding job outlining a whole variety of different things is with this program, but in our 11-bed facility, we have the ability to provide medical detox, where we have nursing staff that are on 24/7. So if someone is wanting to begin the process of that journey of recovery, this is an excellent place for them to do that. And when they are there, we offer many other services to them. The whole sort of substance use disorder is very complex, and there are many things that go into the decision-making process about why someone uses and whether they decide to continue to use. But what we're trying to do is put everything on our side of the ledger so that somebody will want to decide to stay on a journey of recovery, whether it's somebody's oral health or medical health. We offer all these different services to people while they're there in an integrated fashion. So someone who's in our medical detox may need to, according to criteria that we utilize in the field, need to be in a partial hospitalization program. That's a service we have there, or an intensive outpatient, or just regular outpatient. Or maybe they need medication-assisted treatment, which is one of the most promising practices that folks have been utilizing to walk away from the opiate crisis or using opiates. So, there's 13 different services that are offered to people who go through this safe station journey, and our job is to try to figure out how can we make sure that we offer to people the services that are appropriate and needed by that individual, and then get them connected up to maybe residential, and then hopefully after that some safe and sober housing, so that they can kind of get out of their environment where they're in a habit of using with whoever it is that's in their particular living environment. So we're very dedicated to a fair and objective evaluation process. We've been working with other partners throughout the community. Part of our expenses in all of this is investing staffing and infrastructure in trying to measure, collect the data, call the people that have been through the program. We have some medical experts that are helping us in that process. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's not just actually, the drivers are vital, and all of the drivers are sort of out with it. They are all people who have successfully completed their own recovery, and we work hard at the messaging that occurs for people on that journey. So I'll just say that to me, the results are absolutely moving in the right direction. And I will add that the number of Narcan administrations is also, in addition to fatalities and overdoses that you've heard from the mayor about, has also declined in the exact same time horizon. So good things seem to be happening, and it would seem like this is a worthwhile program. Our agency is committed to trying to find resources from any and all sources that will help make it whole in terms of where we are financially. But we entered into this program in the middle of our fiscal year, never knowing that the mayor and others would ask us to participate. So we had to really try to figure out how do we get all the resources and personnel together. And we did it, and we have lots of enthusiasm and excitement among our staff that they're making a difference in this program. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about it. And I have with me Anna Pansine, our controller, who's interested in answering any questions that might be about our finances.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I might add is I know that Chief Gallipo is here and is very engaged in the program, as well as all members of the fire department. I don't know if he or someone would like to add anything or not.
Chief, you want to come up and?
Good evening. The only thing I think it's really important for everyone to understand is that, as the mayor said, Manchester started their program about 6 months prior to us. And a lot of the pitfalls that they had in the city of Manchester, we caught wind of early on. And when we started to work on how we were going to run an access point, the Safe Stations program, my biggest concern, along with Chief Rhodes, was the fact that we can't be tying up resources in a city that's doing over 30,000 calls for service a year. 11,300 of those are emergency responses. So we had a lot of discussions, and Mr. Kelleher and Harbor Homes committed to be as quick as possible. We had initially set a 15-minute goal, and from day one, the folks that work for Harbor Homes and for Mr. Kelleher, their drivers have been spot on. They've been there. Early on, we were talking about 13 and a half, 14 minutes. Now we're down to about 11 and a half minutes on average. Very professional folks. And, when someone comes in, they make that first connection with a firefighter, and you start to hear the stories about the families and how this crisis is really tearing them apart. And when the handoff is made to Harbor Homes, those folks, they're very comfortable, and they just, they pick up the individual and bring them back. And I think it's a full process from the time they knock on the door at a firehouse right up to the time they get to their facility. And again, as the mayor said, the overdose stats are going down. We're about 34% less overdose per month now than we were a year ago. And Narcan administrations are going down also. So it's working. It's proving itself that it's working.
Does anyone on the budget committee have any questions? Alderman Schoenman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate all the work that Harbor Homes is doing. I think it seems to be a good program. I got a question about the finances here. The statement of revenues and expenditures this is just for Safe Station. It's not for Harbor Homes altogether, correct? How is Harbor Homes doing altogether? Is it running in a surplus, or is it running negative? Is it breaking even?
Harbor Homes as a whole right now is running in a deficit. Depends on whether you want to include depreciation, which we have a lot of, but without depreciation, I believe our deficit right now is around $300,000 to $400,000.
And how would you expect to make that up?
Well, we have a number of grants that those deficits are program-specific related, so they're restricted revenues that need to be acquired to balance out those programs. And we expect by the end of the fiscal year to have receipts, and we also try to make it up by support from the public. They're a very significant part of the work we do, and we rely on the public to help support even efforts like this.
Just one more.
Follow-up?
Yes, thank you. At the end of each fiscal year, are you typically even? Are you in the hole a little bit or ahead a little bit?
Some years we're down and some years we're up, but overall, I think we're sound financially.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the budget committee want to ask a question or make a motion?
I do.
Alderman Wilshire?
I make a motion to amend Resolution 16082 in the title by changing $20,000 to $50,000, and in the body of the legislation as well, changing the $20,000 to $50,000. This is can I speak to that? Okay.
Certainly.
This is an organization who has partnered with us as a community. They stepped up. They've done everything they can do. They've been effective. I mean, without the fire department, the police department, AMR, we wouldn't have the stats we have right now. I firmly believe that if Harbor Homes had not stepped up, that we wouldn't see a decline in overdoses. I think we'd still be in big trouble here in the city. We're on the map nationally for this epidemic. I don't know if it's an epidemic but we're on the map. You know, the people are looking at New Hampshire. What are they doing? What's going on over there? This is what we should be doing. We should be partnering with the people who know what they're doing, serving people who have substance abuse disorder, and they're really good at it. Thank you for that.
Okay. I was just gonna say, motion on the floor is to amend our 16082 from 20K to 50K in the title and the body. Discussion, Alderman Siegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I supported the original legislation, and I certainly support this. If there's ever anything that contingency was supposed to be used for, it would be this. It's actually an honor to serve in a city where we have this kind of partnership and we have people stepping up. If all you care about is the cold economic calculation behind this, we are probably going to ultimately save money, because people that are stuck in this death spiral are going to be taken out of that, where they're doing acts that probably are not productive. But if you take the wider, more human view, which I hope we all do, we're saving people's lives. We're putting families back together. The numbers don't lie. And this kind of money for that is short money, very short. I think it would be, I don't know that I could sleep at night with myself if I voted against this. Now, that's just me, okay? So I'm not going to put the screws to everybody. Everybody makes their own decisions. But this is definitely the right thing to do. Absolutely the right thing to do.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, the motion on the floor is to amend our 16082 from 20K to 50K, both in the title and in the body of the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Wiltshire?
Move to recommend final passage as amended, recommend final passage as amended.
Okay, the motion on the floor now is to recommend final passage of the amended R-16082. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Just one thing before you go. Being an engineer, I deal a lot in root cause analysis. And what you're doing, what the fire department's doing, what the police department's doing is yeoman's job in trying to solve this problem. But sometime in the future, we probably should have a discussion on, as I said, root cause analysis. What's causing people to turn to the drugs? You know, if you can get at that, you can certainly relieve the burden on all three groups.
That's an excellent observation, and one of the major factors that's been contributing to it has been sort of the overprescribing of opioid pain medications. And there are a number of specials, documentaries that are out there that could help you answer some of those questions. But there's a lot of data that's saying that that's the majority.
And I agree. Alderman Schoeneman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with what you say there. I think that it's wonderful to be trying to get people off from doing this, but it's not too late, but it's a little late. We need to be doing something that stems it in the beginning, and I agree that there's the prescription problem. But still, somehow, and we don't solve that here, but I think it's worth saying, I commend you for saying it, that we need to do something about what causes people to lose the hope that they do and cause them to turn to these things. Because that's where we're going to get the benefit. I think that Alderman Siegel mentioned families being intact. Well, we're putting them together. Maybe they shouldn't fall apart. There's a lot of things that need to be done to stem this tide, not just respond to it when it's already here. And I think that we need to really focus on that. Some folks say we got to destigmatize this. Maybe someone who's considering doing this should think there's a stigma associated with it, and maybe not do it because it's wrong, and it's going to cause pain and suffering for themselves and their families. But there are, I think, things that we need to be thinking about in the future that would address that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So tonight, we're gonna do 2 department reviews for public safety. We're gonna start with the police department, whose revenue is on page 40 and the appropriations on page 159. And as always, everybody has that book that was presented. I went through it today, and it's got a lot of data in it. So if the police would come up. Yeah, if they both turned around and sat down, you'd be in trouble.
Yes, I would. I absolutely admit that. I'm sorry.
So before you get started, I went through this book, looks like it was an engineering document, and there's a lot of information in this. And I would ask the budget committee if we could focus our questions tonight on the budget issues. And as far as the other data in here, I won't restrict anybody from asking questions, but if we want to have the police back at some further time after the budget to talk about more of the specifics, I think that would be a good idea. But, Chief, or who's going to start off? Okay, Chief?
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, in our meeting with Mayor Donchis, we were given guidelines of no more than a 2.9% budget increase for FY18. Our proposed FY18 budget shows an increase of $589,411, which is a 2.9% increase over FY17. The majority of the increase is to fund negotiated contract increases. Utility and operational accounts increased $27,877. Among these were increases to the protective clothing account for 20 body armor vests, which are on the replacement schedule, as well as the ammunition account for anticipated price increases. Virtually all of the remainder of our budget was level funded to meet our prescribed guidelines. We continue to face the worst opioid epidemic in our history. We've redirected every available asset to fighting this through education, prevention, and enforcement. The man hours required has been significant and has mainly been accomplished through the redirection of the traffic unit, along with full-time engagement from the POP and narcotics units. Last year, Nashua suffered a record 332 drug overdoses, 44 of which were fatal. Our enforcement efforts yielded 792 drug arrests, and I have no doubt prevented many more overdoses, which saved lives. We continue to face this challenge every day. Overdoses are down 34% from last year at this time. Unfortunately, overdose deaths are slightly ahead of last year, including 2 from this past weekend. The Nashua Police Department was reaccredited last year through CALEA, as you well know, on our 3-year reaccreditation. It is now a 4-year term with annual online reviews. And we had our 2017 online review in March, where the assessor took a sampling of 100 of our standards, and we once again received a perfect compliance score. So I certainly, refer you to our budget summary and our budget, and myself and anyone up here would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Questions for the police department? Alderman Schoneman.
Thank you. I have a question just about the arrests and follow through on the arrests. That's a lot of arrests, and I know the court system is backed up. How many of these people in the course of that year, how many of those 700, whatever the number was, are processed through the court system or still waiting?
Well, they're all initially processed. They are arraigned, receive bail. The drug arrests are usually felonies, so they wait to be indicted, and they're all going through the system. Within a year, a lot of them for the major drug offenses of sales of narcotics, a lot of them are probably still going through the system.
So it takes longer than 1 year. So they are back on the street temporarily.
It depends
potentially,
if they
can
get
make
bail. Yes, they are.
Thanks.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yeah, how does this budget translate into number of officers on the street?
The same number we have. It's no additional officers. As a matter of fact,
But is that, we had gotten it up to 176, was it?
correct.
And we had dropped back a little from there last year, so is it, what's the actual number?
It's down again. We're 6 officers down as of June 1st. and 9 functional officers down. We have 2 in the academy and 1 in field training that just got out of the academy. You know, certainly what makes these officers outstanding for us makes them outstanding for anyone. And we recently just lost an officer to the DEA, and you know, we're about to lose an officer next week to the Social Security Administration Investigative Service. So again, you know, they're highly qualified, highly sought after candidates, and you know, sometimes they're doing a full career here. It's, I don't want to say easier to go elsewhere, but their choice.
Assuming that we can find people to put through the academy and understanding that it takes a while for them to become proficient, do we have the money to be at the strength we want to be at?
We have the money to be at our budgeted strength. That's, you know, the commission has authorized us 185. Our budgeted strength is 179. So, yeah, I mean, we do have the money to be what we're budgeted for, but I certainly would like many more.
Anyone else? As I had talked to you earlier, I know that you are, based on what you need to do as a police department, are actually short officers. We've had, as a board, several complaints about speeders in different streets, some of them quite loud at some of the mayor's public meetings. And I realize, I think I want the public to know, you know, that you're constrained by what you can do based on the number of officers you have. I guess some of them have a question is, can there be days where you just take somebody and set up a speed trap so that they know that somebody's still watching? Because there are a number of streets in the city, one that sticks out, Charlotte Avenue, and it's a school, that there's a lot of excess speeding. But I don't know if you think you can break out officers to occasionally spot check speeding on different streets.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, you know, certainly we don't set up speed traps. That's not a word we use, but I certainly understand. Enforcement area. But believe me, I get the same calls you do, and we certainly address those calls individually. We've repurposed our traffic unit, and it has been over a year. It's been a year and a half now. And when you're taking 3 officers off the street, that specifically their entire purpose for 8 hours a day was to write tickets, certainly your tickets are going to go down, and certainly your motor vehicle stops are going to go down. But, you know, certainly keep in mind, we still wrote, you know, 1,500 tickets last year, and we also stopped almost 23,000 cars. And, you know, it's a catch-22 for us. I mean, certainly, you know, stopping vehicles and enforcing motor vehicles saves lives. But so does the interdicting drugs, which unfortunately, it's just an epidemic. So, you know, we looked at the data, you know, myself and my staff and the police commission, and, you know, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. We certainly still address speed issues. You know, when somebody calls and we assign an officer, you know, it's kind of been misconstrued in the past when sometimes they're told, well, the traffic unit, you know, is not assigned to that. But again, traffic unit is not the only one that can write tickets. I mean, we have officers out there in every single sector, and officers, you know, write summonses every day. So we certainly do address that, and certainly, you know, keeping speed down prevents accidents. But we didn't take this lightly. We didn't just jump into pulling the traffic unit. We actually did a study, and the half year that we decided to pull them, we saw our accidents were kind of staying the same. And last year, with the traffic unit doing nothing but drug interdiction, that last calendar year, we actually had 2 less accidents. You know, it was talking thousands, but we had 2 less accidents than the year before. So certainly, you know, we monitor this data. You know, you talk about the book we give you. We're a modern policing agency. We monitor this data, you know, weekly to see where we're trending, and we most certainly can do special assignments for traffic and things of that sort. But I just want the public to know we didn't take that decision lightly, and we don't feel that we're losing anything. And I think the number of traffic accidents bears it out. It's virtually the same as it was when we had the traffic unit full time.
Thank you. And 2 other things. One, I know that when something happens and they need response, that the police department has been really, at least in my ward, extremely effective in replying very quickly and in enough force to do whatever they need to do. So I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The other thing is, I'm looking at these capital improvements, and I read the capital improvements projects. Then I looked at the schedule and when they're gonna be done, and I'm going, seriously? You've got your locker room that is supposedly falling apart, and you're not gonna change them until 2023? Probably won't have any doors on them by that time.
Yeah, we didn't get a super lot of love, actually, in that respect, but, you know, we're thankful now they're working on the roof, in the garage, the fleet maintenance garage roof. You know, we understand we're competing with everyone in the city, and, you know, our major problem may not be a major problem for others in the city, so, you know, we certainly understand that, and, you know, we'll wait our turn appropriately as
And
we
the
have.
HVAC, your air conditioning hasn't worked in how long?
It's off and on. It's not working right now because they're working on the roof. But they were changing out. They changed the system and they put the new generator in last year. And this year they're going to be replacing the electrical panel and components and things like that. But you know that's certainly a priority because that runs city communications for the entire city. So we can't lose that certainly.
So, it's just another example of we as a city are not putting enough money aside for infrastructure to take care of our buildings and our property. And I know budget's tight, but, you know, it's really sad that we let things run to the point where we probably have to do a project where we have to bond for it because it's gone so far. So, any other questions for the Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, this is a holdover from last week. Chief, I asked Mr. Griffin last week, looking at the contingency police grants, and I didn't really know. The dollar amount is $69,318. But I come in my research, and I'm looking for you to verify this in a brief explanation. This is reoccurring grants that the department applies for, is that correct? And that you pay out annually when they come due?
Yeah, yes, I believe so. They're anticipated grants. They're renewable annually, like the VAWA, Violence Against Women and things of that sort, and they require a match. So, you know, because of that, I believe that comes from contingency. If I can just defer to Karen, that's held in contingency.
Correct. We
Okay.
have received this for numerous years. And we put aside the funding every year in a contingency account. And it's separate for the police department to make sure the funding is available for us when we need it. It's a match that's required. And we also match partially with in-kind funding through benefits and pension. And what they're looking for is that eventually this will be self-funded. So the amount was a 75-25 match years and years ago. And little by little, it is decreasing, becoming more of a 50%, even less over time.
Alderman Siegel and Alderman Wiltshire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a kind of a question on a line item for computer software, which is on page 162 under equipment. It seems as though that budgeted amount is dropped by a half. Now, is that really because the need is dropped by a half, or is that sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, dropped by a half?
I know the answer, but I'll let them answer it.
Well, I don't know the answer, and I do want them to answer it, because it might be that there's a legitimate reason it isn't. Something like that.
That's the account reorg.
We talked to this about this briefly in budget prep. That's you know, Mr. Simfo, our IT manager. He's you know, basically realigned different items that, you know, should be here and should be there. So basically everything he's reorganized is still an increase, but the entire total of everything is about a $9,000 increase. Is that right, Karen? If I can
Yes.
defer to Karen on the
Yes.
line item.
The difference between software and maintenance, it was not in the proper account. It really should be in a maintenance account versus the software. And so that's what he's doing, is simply moving it to a proper account.
Okay, so you're just moving columns, but the actual software usage and maintenance is not dropping by half, and we're not kind of letting things languish.
Exactly. The funding will be
Okay.
adequate.
Thank you.
It's just moving it to the proper account designation.
okay, that makes me feel a little better.
I believe they also moved the software maintenance of the vehicles to another line as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Several items are moved around,
Yeah.
and some were added, some were decreased, and some were added in the other lines.
Alderman Wilshire?
Thank you. I'd just like to commend the department for, the work they put into this budget, for the work you do every day. Keeping our city safe and sending a message to those that are dealing drugs in our city that you're not going to get away with it here. So thank you for that, all of you.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other, Alderman Siegel?
Just a quick comment. I had I spoke to the chief. The police overtime expendable trust fund, unfortunately, has been drawn down. We allocated that a little while ago. And so we have to keep that in mind when looking at this budget, that we have to replenish that. Because again, when we first created that legislation, it was viewed as like crime is like snow. You can't predict it, but when it happens, you have to deal with it. And so we really have to think about putting that money back in there, because this stuff ebbs and flows, and there's just no way around it. We have to have our ability to put the police on the spot in the correct force.
Other questions? One other thing, I was going through your list of vehicles and their age and when they're being replaced. Do you guys feel you're keeping up with that, so that you're not driving antiques on some areas?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. We have a schedule, and, we certainly have, 80-something vehicles, I believe, and certainly they're all on the SURF replacement schedule, and, we have nothing that really concerns us at this time. We're pretty solid with that. Thank you, though.
All right. Okay, there are no other questions? Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Toll, have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And now we'll be addressing Department 152, the Fire Department, revenues on page 42, appropriations on page 168.
And the liaison, Alderman.
And we've been joined by the liaison from the Board of Aldermen to the Fire Commissioner, Mr. Alderman Muzzigolia. Okay. So, Chief, you want to identify yourself and lead off?
Good evening, Stephen Gallipo, National Fire Chief. Just like to open by saying that what we've done over the past year is very similar to the last year's, and we look at the citywide goals. We look at public safety from our aspect. We look at reducing response time, increasing coverage, and maintaining adequate staffing. I think the reason that dollar loss annually in the city of Nassau is relatively low to some other cities comparable to our size are because of the fact that we are adequately staffed. We continue to want to provide good equipment to all our personnel to assure safety. And our new adventure with the Safe Station program has added more to our plate. And we also look at one of our citywide goals is public fire education. And we're probably not getting an A in that category anymore, but we're at least trying to maintain a C. Some of you might remember back in 2006, we lost a member of the Fire Marshal's Division, and that took 25% of their workforce away. And the last thing that we look at, obviously, is city infrastructure. We realize that the Board of Aldermen and the taxpayers invest a lot of money in the fire department with it for buildings and equipment. Trucks are getting more expensive each year. So we look at properly maintaining them and making sure that we try to deal with all the problems as they're small rather than waiting until they're $2 million fixes. Some of our strategies are continuing to look for, additional grant funding at every possible opportunity we can get. And, as we go on, I know we talk about it year after year after year, but if you look back at the 1985 Fire Pro study and the 2000 Cities Master Plan, we've identified a our shortfalls for response, and we still continue to try to get that better. And what I do find kind of a bit of amusing is when they did the 1985 Fire Pro study, as a fire department, we were only doing about 3,000 emergency calls a year, and now we're doing well over 11,000 emergency calls a year, and we still have that same shortage. But we're doing our best to fill the gaps every chance we can. Then the last year we kind of need to look at is our fire communications division. In mid-1970s, 75, 76, they actually added a second dispatcher to our fire communications. One person answers the phones, takes care of all the phone business. The other one takes care of listening to the radios and making sure everyone is safe out in the field. Now they're doing just phone transactions a year. They're doing well over 100,000 of those, and our call volume has gone up 33% just from last year to this year, and a heck of a lot more since the 1970s. So at some point, I really think as a city, we're going to have to make an investment and potentially grow that division a little bit. I'm not here tonight to ask for that, so everybody can sigh a little bit, but I think those are very important things that need to be put on the plate. I wouldn't want to be the dispatcher that misses a Mayday call, during the height of an incident. So, and I don't think anybody in this room would want someone to be in that position either, but obviously realizing that the city's, got the spending cap and everyone's doing their best to get through this time period. But I think it's important just to mention those items and to get them out there. And also in that fire alarm division, back in 2006, we lost a lineman, which was a guy that worked on all the wires out in the street. I did a little research, or had some research done for us, and just in 2016, the fire department assisted the IT division with the city's fiber plant, moving it from pole to pole, either because a pole was being replaced due to age or because of an accident, over 29 times. And we continued our research, and we checked with some outside vendors. If we had to hire somebody like a Wave Guide or Siemens or something like that, they charge on an average of $600 each time they come out to do one of those. And, we're doing it as part of our, regular business. So those are just important things that need to be put out there. As far as the budget that we've presented this year, similar to every other department in the city, we met with Mayor Donchis a couple months back, and Mayor Donchis asked what I thought would be a level service budget, and I wasn't really sure at the time. He asked us to meet 2.9, and at 2.9, we are presenting a level service budget. Everything that we provided the citizens in the city last year, we will continue to provide next year with the budget that was submitted.
Questions? Or you're all set with, okay, Alderman Siegel?
Thank you. Just real quickly, on page 170, the medical supplies line item, that's the same as last year, but does that include Narcan?
No, Narcan is, it's on a replacement, so when we use one, AMI gives us one back. So we don't have to purchase new each time we use it.
So that's not in your budget?
No, it's not.
Okay, thanks.
Alderman Schoenman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On looking at page 168 through 170, there's a number of accounts where we had a number in 2017. Nothing has been spent through 3/31/2016, and we have the same number in 2018. For instance, sick incentive, which is 51,614, was 32,000. It looks like nothing's been expended. We talked about that last year. I think it's more lucrative to take the sick day than it is to take the incentive, it sounded like. And it's still 32,000. Consulting services were 4,000. There no expenses, still 4,000. Special detail, pensionable was 2,300. It's still 2,300, but no expenses. Can you talk about some of those? Heating oil, no expenses, still 2,500, and then meals down in 61,900, 400, still 400.
Well, some of those items, from year to year, your priorities change a little bit, and they may not get expended this year, but it's items that we definitely don't want to lose because we're going to use them next year. The consulting services, I think when this book was made, it hadn't been touched, but with the Spitbrook Road project, we're digging into that right now for different line items or different items we need to get adjusted. And again, the sick leave incentive, that's it's a CBA requirement that if we meet a certain mark, we'd have to pay it out. So I'd hate not to budget for it and then have to come up with it rather than, budget for it and not use it.
Alderman Sherman?
Thank you. How often do we use that sick incentive? Is it ever used?
Yes, it has been used in the past.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Alderman O'Brien?
Well, I wonder if I could ask the chief, if we increase the sick leave incentive, would that encourage the members not to use so much sick time and possibly have the desired effect that what we're budgeting for?
Yeah, I guess it would be an option, yes.
So instead of deleting it, we should probably look at making it a true incentive program.
Yes.
Other questions? Alderman O'Brien?
I don't want to steal the floor, but Chief Gallopo, I noticed on the police department, they had a separate contingency, and that was for, as you heard, with my question, granting, that was reoccurring granting. And I know the fire department does a lot and thank you for doing that, getting grants and everything. But do you find any of those grantings, shooting for grants that are reoccurring, that you would benefit from a contingency type of a account, maybe for efficiency as we look in the future?
I don't know 100% how their grants are structured, but on the fire side of the grant world, the Department of Homeland Security, pretty much we apply for, whether it's equipment, training, or whatever, we apply for a set amount, and it's use it or lose it. It's not something that you can hold and carry over to another year. They're not, I guess they wouldn't be reoccurring like you were explaining.
Alderman McCarthy?
I think the issue with the police grants is that there are grants we may or may not get that require a match. So it's in the contingency account as the match. Are your Homeland grants requiring a local match, or?
The Homeland Security grants do not require a local match. When we go for federal grants through the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program, we've planned in the past years to, have that money aside if we were successful. The year that we got the breathing apparatus and the new training facility, there was $1 million worth of equipment we received in 1 year. And through our operating budget, we squeezed pennies and did what we had to make sure we had the copay or the matching payment.
Other questions? I noticed in the police budget that they don't carry oxygen in their cars anymore. Is that because when you respond to an accident or an emergency that you guys have oxygen?
We carry it, and AMR carries it.
Okay.
That's probably why they don't.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. Chief, as you say, in growing your department, what would be the procedure that you'll come in the future and looking at that? Would there be proposals to the budget or finance or to the mayor and to?
We would start with, obviously, through the mayor's office. Actually, we'd start a step before that with the fire commission and make sure that the fire commission was in full agreement, which I'm certain they are, because when we presented this year's budget, they totally agree with, the direction that we're heading, and gain support through the mayor's office and, as many folks around the Hushu as possible.
Other questions? Chief, where are we on the expansion of the station on Spitbrook Road? Is
All the pricing is in to get the guaranteed maximum price for the project. I believe it's coming up in the first finance meeting in June, back to the finance board, June 7th.
Okay, have you in your budget taken into account any increased operating expenses or infrastructure expenses because of the additional space in the building?
For this fiscal year, we're gonna play it by ear.
Okay.
I guess it's not my expertise to figure out what potential heat costs might go up or electrical costs. I think the electrical project we did with the lights and changing things to LED proved that it actually saved us some money with the the significant increase we've had over the last couple of years. We're still right in where we were a few years back. So I think that we're going to be okay.
All right. Alderman Lizzie Golia?
Yes, thank you. Regarding Spitbrook Road Station, as you can imagine, many of us are very excited about that growth. So I'm happy that's moving forward. But I'd just like to thank the department for all the work they've put into this budget. And I think as we've gone down the road with fire assisting with safe stations, thank all of the members of the department for their support and the services they continue to provide, both in terms of firefighting, public education, and now supporting the safe stations program. So they've taken it on and I think should be commended for their efforts also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Wiltshire?
I agree with Alderman Malizia-Golia. They've taken firefighting to a whole new level, and it's a good level. Thank you all for doing that.
Members.
Oh, I thank them too.
Any other questions for the fire department?
If I may
Yes,
add,
Chief.
yes, thank you. The chief touched on a lot of things, and he brought up the fact that we are not coming forward this year for any increases. But as the chief of operations, I must tell you that we are growing as a city. 1,000 new housing units within the last couple of years. And this isn't just people who are relocating in the city. This is bringing some serious people, some additional problems to us. The Safe Station program, as we said, 450 incidents we've had. That doesn't account for the nearly 30% in emergency call increase we've had. Again, I think we're growing. The city is growing. You drive around the city and you see it. And as the chief said, 1985, we should have had 2 more stations. The city master plan of 2000, we should have had 2 more stations. 2017, we're operating with the same basic footprint we had. Thanks to the board, thanks to the residents of the city, we are expanding on a station that was built in 1977 to an ever-growing part of our city. Yet again, we're not looking to increase our staff, our resources in that part of the city. We're planning for the future. But I think, as the chief said, going forward, these are some conversations that we're going to need to have to figure out how are we going to respond to the needs of this community.
Thank you. Alderman McCarthy.
Yeah, that said, I want to just repeat the point I make every year about that, which is the Station 7 and 8 plan from Fire Pro assumed that we would have the Southwest Parkway and a river crossing and approximately where the high school is. We don't, and that leaves us exposed in the western Broad Street area as far as coverage. So have we, as we plan for that, have we looked at where the northern new station might be to give us better coverage for the whole of the northwest quadrant?
Yeah, we would look more towards the Thornton Road area, Amherst Street, Thornton Road area. With traffic being what it is, it's almost a little bit easier coming in. The airport's done some considerable renovations to their facility out there. At some point, if we could get a permanent access road that's maintained 365 days a year, that would also help for that Broad Street area also.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. Alderman Siegel brought up the point with the police department. Occasionally, there's like if they get hit with something that is extraordinary police activity. I know the same thing is true with fire. I mean, we're only like a couple of general alarm fires away from probably breaking the bank. How is your emergency account for those type of situations, such as storms or the whatnot that can affect the budget?
The fire fund, if you remember, back in 2015, we came to the board to expend about $25,000 or $28,000 out of that. At the time, I believe it was around $125,000 in there. So it's still relatively healthy.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for
Thank you,
coming
gentlemen.
in, giving us a presentation. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Unfinished business,
There is none.
new business?
There is none.
Or anything else that was tabled that anyone wants to bring up? Seeing none. General discussion? Public comment? Anyone, members of the public want to comment? Seeing none. Remarks by Alderman? Alderman O'Brien.
I would just like to say it was good to have two very important divisions, not saying that they all aren't. Each division in the city brings their own specialty to the needs and wants of our citizens, but we're very fortunate, and I thank the men and women of both the National Police and National Fire Rescue.
Okay, there's no need for a non-public. Do I hear a motion? Alderman Siegel?
To adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:16 PM.